Okay, let's get started here. Folks, I'll probably ask for a little bit of speaker sympathy. I sound a little bit like Barry White's voice coach at the moment, fighting off a little bit of laryngitis. I lost my voice last night, so apologies for that. Today, welcome, thank you to coming to today's session. Attention please, Mastering Digital Friction with Guided Attention. And the title of our presentation is a bit meta to our conversation today, in fact, which is around the state of the workplace. And look, every presentation has had it or said it today. Over the last few years, we all went through it. The pandemic brought forth a tremendous amount of digital and business transformation, the likes of which none of us could have predicted. But one place where it gets missed in terms of the headlines that we see is the digital workplace itself, the continued fragmentation and proliferation of apps within the experience that we have. Look, let's take a step back here. I'm sure there was some moment in your life, maybe it was your 20s, maybe it was your 30s, but there was some day where you woke up, your feet hit the floor, and you thought to yourself, my God, my day is a triumvirate of thirds. We spend a third of our lives sleeping, a third of our lives doing the things we want to and enjoy, and of course, that remaining third working. But here's the rub. Half of this time is wasted grinding against technology that was supposed to improve our day. And that's because the relationship that we have with technology has begun to erode over time. But it doesn't have to be this way. There's a better way that our employees can be working. Folks, my name is Rob Ryan. I'm the head of business value with Workgrid Software. I'm joined here with my partner, Frank Pathyil. He's going to be discussing some of our customer stories with you. But we'd like to unpack the challenge of digital friction as a whole and really show you how guided attention can be a means to deliver those great experiences. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, though, digital friction. Gartner has a great definition of digital friction as the unnecessary effort an employee has to exert or use data or technology for work that gets in the way of focusing on the right tasks and making the right decisions. It's a good definition. Another way to think about it is it's just waste of the day. And it comes from a number of areas. First, application overload. I have too many things, too many places to go, resources, portals that I have to wade through. It's information overload. I have too much content, conversations, tasks that I have to filter, find, and search through. It's a lack of an employee-centric experience. The digital workplace today is really a collection of apps, misfit toys that we've collected over time, but have been poorly rationalized to the persona of the employees using that technology. And of course, it's all the pings, dings, and attention black holes of items vying for our attention, distracting us from our work and pulling us out of our day. And so when we think about the digital workplace as a whole, what is it? It's our intranet, it's our CRM, it's our HCM, it's all our backend apps, it's our multiple wikis. Are we using Teams? Are we using Slack? What's using what for where? Employees don't necessarily know because, again, we've begun to collect these. And you can find it for the data points across multiple analysts and providers. 68% of workers will toggle up to 10 different apps per day. 31% of workers will claim that the toggling actually has them lose their train of thought. And some studies have even suggested that if you were to impact an employee within the flow of their work and distract them, it's going to pull them away for a full 23 minutes before they come back to that particular task. And again, technology was supposed to improve our day. And if you think about all these distractions that you have, that ends up adding up to, if you have 1,000 people in your workforce, 655,000 lost hours within a year. Now, what about context switching? There was a great research article brought at HBR late last year that said the average knowledge worker will context switch 1,200 to 3,000 times per day. It seems like a lot. It actually echoed Pegasystems' study back in 2018, which found the same figures to be true. But if we start to think about that for a moment, all of the different apps, the screens, the cascade and peppering within our day, the tasks that we have to do, the notifications that we receive, well, that is what the day looks like. It's all the alt-tabbing back and forth. That's the employee experience. That's not what we pay them to do. Distract them, have them wade through multiple apps. The downstream impact to the employee ends up eroding the employee experience as a whole. Look, if they're missing important communications, they're missing key notifications, what that brings is less strategic alignment. The people in our organization don't necessarily know where we're moving because they're having to spend their day grinding against the technology. If they're wasting their time context switching, if they're going through archaic steps and processes and whatnot, if they're missing approvals that are ultimately delayed, that's decreasing productivity, it's eroding their attention that's already eroded with social media as it is, and certainly slowing down decision making. And if we're overwhelming them still with the apps, the distractions, not giving them the path and the tools to be successful, well, that's ultimately going to lead to increased stress, lower employee experience, lower scores, or your NPS, etc. So one of the ways we can begin to think about this is we hear a lot about digital friction. It's coming up in a lot of conversations and presentations today. But we don't necessarily, well, why is this not being looked at? What cultural aspects help to create this? Well, the first is learned helplessness. What happens when an employee steps into our organization? They're given the laptop, they're provisioned their ID, they're given a path of tools to go through. But they learn that this is the way we work. This is how we work. They're not going to raise their hand and say, this is crazy. We're using Teams, we're using Slack, we're using all these different wikis. Projects are happening over here, but other projects are happening over there. They're not going to raise their hand. Why does this continue? Well, as we begin to procure more applications, management always gets away more with less. They're not going to push back against those new processes, new solutions that we put forth in front of them. They're going to actually speed up. In fact, there was some great research performed by Professor Gloria Marks out of UCLA over the last 5 years that shows if you take an employee and give them an hour's worth of time and then begin to interrupt them, what they do is they'll eventually complete that work task. But what they'll do is they'll start to speed up through that task, certainly creating more errors, creating more stress. Another reason why digital friction persists is the myth of multitasking. Now, I'm sure by now you probably know that multitasking is a fabrication. Yes, you can chew bubble gum, mow a lawn, listen to a podcast all at the same time. I question how well your lawn lines are in terms of if they're straight or not, but as you start to overload an individual with 3 high cognitive tasks, performance begins to degrade quite rapidly. Another reason why digital friction persists, it's no one's job. There's some great digital workplace leaders here. They bridge the gap between the business and IT. They can form a vision for the future, create that novel experience. That's a rarity. Those types of leaders, in terms of being within the business, they're few and far between. There's some great folks here you can speak to, but in terms of the grand scale of things, in terms of a defined role, it's not the norm. Why? Because of competing priorities. Corporate communications has their charge, HR theirs, IT and the same. No one's looking at it programmatically. And on the vendor side, why is it not solved for? Well, applications have their desire to keep you within their particular platform. They design for the adoption and utility of their solution. So they want you within their app. So if you think about that, the integration possibilities in terms of being connected into other products, well, that's not necessarily going to be there because they want you to interact within their world, not necessarily across to other applications as well. So what does a frictionless digital workplace look like? At Workgrid, we believe that it begins by looking at it from the employee's perspective, and that starts with guided attention technology. Guided attention technology, you can think of it as a way to really cut through the clutter of the day, bringing the experience that are happening within the chaos of your applications to the forefront of where your employees are. So optimizing the experiences that happen within all cascaded applications, prioritizing those experiences to individuals, and then ultimately delivering those wherever they happen to work. And that's a key bit. It's not another place to go, but delivers those actions where you are. I'm going to give you a tangible example here. Let's say you happen to be working within Teams. You had a 9 o'clock meeting, it ends 10 minutes early, and Between that 10 minutes, you are able to check off a number of tasks without your day directly in Teams or directly within your intranet, wherever you happen to be. Perhaps it's an expense report coming in from your employees. Maybe it's a procurement related to a MacBook or a chair that you had. Perhaps it's checking in on a service ticket update, or you're approving time off for your employees. You're not having to bounce around to Concur, UKG, Workday. Those notifications, those transactions are brought to you wherever you happen to be, ultimately creating that better experience because you're not having to app hop. So one of the ways you could think about this is a digital assistant that's omnipresent, that's giving you the right to knows, the right to do's, and is also conversational, providing you the ability to ask questions, get answers, and even deliver those micro experiences wherever you happen to be. So for some customer stories, I'm going to bring Frank up here to continue our conversation.
Thanks, Rob. My name is Frank Pathyil. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Strategy over at Workgrid, and I beg your indulgence. I'm the pinch hitter presenter for the second half of this presentation. So let's get into some cases, because the case for digital friction has been well established right from the keynote throughout the day, and it's going to be done tomorrow. So I want to open with Liberty Mutual, which is our parent company. And I want you to think back to 2013, and the term digital friction didn't really exist. The other term, yet another thing to check, Yahtzee, a personal favorite of mine, it didn't exist either. Back in 2013 at Liberty Mutual, this was called that approval problem. What was that approval problem? Well, that approval problem was a lack of agility, because managers were bunching off approvals till Friday afternoon, because whether it was a SharePoint site they had to approve, or a time off request, or Fieldglass and Ariba to approve hours for a contingent worker, everything took too long between logins, screen shifts, filling in things. So managers were pushing everything off to Friday, and if that manager was off on a Friday, that was then 10 days to do it, at least 4. But that loss of agility was measurable to the business. It was also measurable as a case of lost eNPS score. So what did Liberty do? They started to understand that they could fix these if they could address the root cause. Too many context switches, that digital friction that was taking place. And they started to try and understand, how can we separate the system of record, Concur, Fieldglass, Ariba, Chrome River, et cetera, et cetera. And at Liberty Mutual, it's a large, old insurance company, they have one of everything, and they will tell you that they need every one of them. But all of those systems continue to exist. The thing is, I don't need to go into Concur very deeply to just hit yes. I just got to hit yes. It might take me 5 minutes to log in, but I am going to still hit yes, or no, hopefully yes. How can we separate out that system of record from the system of experience? And this was the task that was undertaken. And in this first iteration, what they started to do was start to separate. They started to optimize, prioritize, and minimize the distractions by separating out important things you needed to know as to-knows, news, personalized to you. Everything from news of the business unit, to the cafeteria menu of your building. To-dos. This was particularly pertinent to managers. It was the ability to go in that 2 minutes and go yes, yes, no, no, yes, and be done with SAP, Fieldglass, Concur, X number of other things, as well as employee-initiated applications, and finally a chatbot that understood the knowledge base. It could answer questions and was going after that big metric of ticket interruption and can we reduce the number of escalations. The net result was a profound increase in eNPS scores, a return to agility, and this was all deployed off of a bar on the intranet. Now, they are our oldest customer, since we are part of Liberty Mutual. So starting this year, that same experience is now meeting the employee where they choose to live. So if they are in the intranet, it's that bar. If they are inside Teams, it's an app. And this is an important component. By separating the system of record from the system of experience, we can meet the employee where they are and deliver them all those little things that they need to go get done quickly and allow them to reduce the number of context switches. Let's talk about customer number 2. Fortune 200 consumer goods company, plagued with digital friction, looking for a better way. Now, their first step was to understand the persona, and this is an important component. A lot of these decisions are driven by the system, but we have to think about the employee. In this case, deployed to the field even throughout COVID, that needed to go understand what was going on in their world. So the way they would start was they could start the day by getting a holistic sense of the upcoming events, meeting, news, alerts, leads, product updates, etc. They could very quickly start to access the tools and resources they need to best serve their customers, personalized for each sales rep, whether by business unit or region, including key product updates and pricing changes. These changes and access to info could be delivered intelligently, and ultimately it led to a better customer satisfaction, increased quota attainment, and this was, and overall success for the company, defined as a line of business use case, reducing digital friction for these employees who are, not bound to a desk, out in the field, needing to traverse multiple systems. How do we make their life easier? This is that example. I want to talk about number 3, an education nonprofit. The education sector uses Workgrid guided attention technology to minimize the noise created by a plethora of third-party systems, pings, dings, and notifications. This helps reduce the distractions that pull employees out of the flow of their work. It also aids in giving employees a more effective way to find pertinent information and research answers, resources, and policies, making use of the Workgrid chatbot. And that chatbot is growing more and more a part of our product. It's been there since 2013, but it's now growing as the prevalent paradigm, especially in light of Teams and the interest in ChatGPT. Prior to the use of Workgrid, employees used a Slack channel to post queries and questions to 1,600 people, hoping to get an answer. Hopefully it was the right answer, but possibly it might be the wrong answer. It's highly inefficient, riddled with errors, I guess social, but who knows if it's working. The process became a distraction for those employees. Leveraging our natural language chatbot, the organization was able to put in knowledge base articles and reduce that flow of peer-to-peer, just I need to find an expert questions, and encourage employees to start going into the chatbot itself to ask the question and get the answer. In the world of Workgrid, it's not necessarily just an answer. If the question is, this is our policy, it gives you a link. If it's, how do I take Friday off, where we are pushing to is that it just pops up an experience that lets you press a couple buttons, schedule Friday, and hope your manager hits yes when it gets to the next screen. That is the direction we're starting to drive to with this customer story. So let's understand a couple of takeaways here. 1, listen and understand the personas and the people. Ultimately, while we think about this thing and this challenge in terms of Workday versus ServiceNow versus Salesforce versus Oracle versus, I don't know, hopefully I haven't left anybody out, but you know who they all are. We have to flip this and think about the employee. What do I need to do to onboard? What do I need to do to take Friday off? What do I need to do to go do an approval? And in particular, if I'm a manager and I've got multiple people, how do I support them? Understand those things, and then quickly identify high friction, quick wins. If it takes me longer to get into the system than it takes me to actually do the thing, that's a win. Figure out how to optimize that and deliver it right to where I happen to be. And then finally, measure ENPS scores, satisfaction results. Make sure that you're getting traffic through and the results are coming through. Look for things like how long approvals are taking. That starts to give you a guide towards understanding those use cases that are going to win. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about where we are going. Now, in our first, we have been interested in AI married up with guided technology, guided attention technology for a number of years. It's always been our thesis that chat and search were going to merge up, and we are starting to see that emerge, especially this year. What we are starting to see is you can build experiences from scratch. You can pro code them, but you don't have to. Starting this year, making use of the workshop backend, you can build those app templates quickly. and draft, off of drafted specific use cases around training notifications, time off reminders, change management notifications, sales ops, CRM, and every one of those templates can be modified to your particular back end. So if you start with UKG and decide to move to ADP, or if you start with Chrome River for expense reports and you decide to switch mid-year to Concur, the lift and that change management becomes fairly seamless. Again, we've separated the system of experience from the system of record. So that front-end experience for the user is still a yes or a no. We don't really care if it's Chrome River or Concur. In addition, because these have to start to surface inside a chatbot, we've added the ability to add intents to it. The inside of it, if you build an app and you say this is time off, the AI actually starts to extend the capability and start to understand there are a number of ways we can invoke it. It's what's my time off? How do I take Friday off? Do I have time off? All of those might still trigger a time off chat or app experience. This is where we've started to extend the utility of the chatbot by making it more engaging. Now, here's an example of one. One of our key populations we've had success with is managers for approvals, requests, and time management. Look, it's a compelling story. You can do all the things you want to do in your environment to make work better for employees, but that first level manager is ineffective. All of that is for naught. We're trying to tell a compelling story to be more intelligent, to create experiences that help managers have a base level of responsiveness. So here, what you see is an example of making of a use case where we've built in both the request as well as the ability to understand the sequence, the right time to send this to the manager. And we've layered in the ability to understand who else on the team has the day off, and it allows that manager to have all of the things they need to know in order to hit yes or in order to hit no. And because this is built off of a template that can be easily modified, if you are one of those environments where you are starting to see large amounts of PTO start to build up and you have to start getting some of that down, you could theoretically even modify this template to start to say, listen, you have 2 weeks of vacation, there's 3 months left in the year, nobody is in the office on Friday, go play golf. This is where we are starting to extend the capabilities, and we're trying to build these experiences in such a way that it is easy enough for you to modify. This doesn't become an us thing, where our goal is to make this a thing that you and your business owners can quickly modify and start to build a partnership for a better digital experience. Now, another example of intelligence in action. Perhaps the user has upcoming travel scheduled. Travel insights will not only remind the user of the upcoming travel, but also provide internal office information, where it is, how to access a badge, where do I get my Wi-Fi. If the individual lacks building access, all of that experience is built in to here. Now, if we start to think about this, travel is starting to pick up after a couple of years. People need to know where to go and how to go. How many of you are moving back into hybrid work situations where more people are coming into the office and where it's starting to pick up? All right, now I'm gonna let you in a little insight. If you track employee satisfaction number, the day that happens, you're gonna see it start to plummet. What if you can start to set up something that's saying, Frank is coming into the office on Wednesday. Okay, Frank can book a room, a desk here too. Because we're tied into the calendar, because we tie into the room booking system, we can also say, hey, Frank, all of your friends are on the 3rd floor. Hopefully my friends will stay there. And will set me up with a desk on the 3rd floor. It'll give me room access. It'll do all these other things. And it might even remind me that I have to catch a cab to catch a flight. This starts to improve the employee experience. Now, we can't get through the politics of return to work and stuff like that, but if we can make it a little easier, this is where we start to reduce digital friction. This is guided attention in action. This is the mitigation of digital friction in action.
Thanks, Rick. So in closing, folks, we all know that the world has changed, but people have not. Certainly companies have not. So if we could take a step back, really understand digital friction as a whole, how it's impacting our employees, and we can create the digital workplaces that we all want: connected, engaged, and humane. Thank you. We'll be at the corner here if you have any questions, but appreciate your time. We're also at booth 115.